You'll also see in the chat box there's a facility where you can actually raise your hand. So if you want to participate doing that, you can. Renee, yeah, my day's been busy but great. Facilitated a business mentoring group this morning, which was amazing, loved it. And had a few new people there, so it's nice to see the group expanding and growing. And then I actually got to spend some time this afternoon at home out with the horses, which was nice. Okay, so it looks like let's get started because we're on time, and I don't like to keep the people waiting that are on time. So first of all, welcome to both Liz and Renee. I know Liz. Renee, I haven't met you, but I believe you know Amanda, which is fantastic. It's great that you've come on board through her recommendation, because word of mouth is always such a great thing. Yes, she is. Definitely wonderful. So the topic for tonight is how to manage others' projections. Now, what I want to do is just run through a few, let's say, big picture look at how that happens and what some of the scenarios are. And I'd like, if possible, for you, either of you, if you have anything that comes up that has happened to you personally, please pop it into the chat box or the question box. Either one, doesn't matter, so that I can actually personalise this for you a little bit more as we go along. So, okay, someone's just messaged to say they can't come. That's okay. So let's look at what it means when people project. So to me, that is really about when we're having a conversation with somebody and they're being very nice and normal, and then their, let's say, personality changes quite dramatically and they project some anger, frustration, or that sort of thing into the conversation. Now, one thing up front I want to say is projection is in the eye of the beholder. So if you feel like someone is projecting at you, you've got to look at why does it feel that way. Yes, people may be saying things or talking to you in a way that is unacceptable. The other side of the coin is, how are you taking responsibility for how you receive that message, which is the only thing we have control of, is how we receive a message. And that comes down to what in us is getting triggered to look at our part of it. So that's ultimately our responsibility. Now, that is always going to look different in different scenarios, and especially as empaths, if we're highly emotional empaths and we feel deeply and that sort of thing, it's going to impact more. So I'm going to come back to that because that's the overall subject, but I want to come down to a little bit more detail in regards to how we are as empaths and how our emotional nature actually impacts us. So the first thing with an empath, or even if you don't class yourself as an empath, as a woman who is emotional, is we actually see the world through our feelings. So we use our feelings as guides to what is okay and what is not okay. And I always hear from people that they say, oh, it felt great. Like, I love being around that person. It feels really fantastic. Oh, hi, Vicky. Welcome. I'm glad you could make it. We've just started, so you haven't missed anything too much. We've just been talking about how to manage others' projections. I'm just talking about empathic nature and how we as empaths use our feelings as our guide to our world, let's say. So if we're, as I said, saying things like, it felt really great to be around that person or in that group. I feel really empowered or really uplifted in this certain environment. Or if I go to the supermarket, I feel tired or taxed. And so everything is feeling based. And so that's one way you can know if you're actually in your feelings. You'll describe things through feelings. If you describe things through thinking, I thought this, or I think I feel like this, then you're actually in your head and you're thinking about how you expect to feel. Neither are right or wrong, it's just an awareness thing. So that way you get to really be aware of how you are within yourself and how you work as an individual. Now, unfortunately, if our feelings aren't clear, our feelings put up filters. So it's like wearing glasses with coloured lenses. Certain emotional issues that we may have will tint those glasses so that if someone is projecting at us, bullying or whatever it might be, then if we've got an issue with not feeling empowered in that situation, or we've got a history of being bullied, then those filters are going to jump up in front of us and we're just going to go, I'm getting bullied. Oh no, that history is coming back to bite me in the butt, and I don't know what to do, and it all gets overwhelmed, rather than someone who's never been bullied will get the same sort of thing and go, wow, that person is actually trying to get their own way, to be controlling, and that's interesting. And then just continue on. It's not actually an issue. So their lenses are clear in that particular scenario. So just for some feedback, if you would like to just pop in the chat box any sort of scenario that where you've been seen a projection that's triggered you, or seen a projection and you haven't been triggered, and what was that projection? What was it that was an issue for you in that? So I'd love to hear your scenarios from that viewpoint, if you could. Okay, so we don't have anything. Oh, here we go, Elizabeth, thank you. Okay, so I don't know if anyone can see this, but I'm going to read it out for everybody. So bitchiness is one I can't cope with. Growing up, I used to hang with the guys because I couldn't stand the bitchiness. I like to help others and then find it hard when it comes to my turn to receive and it's not reciprocated. Okay. So, and Liz, actually it's interesting because I actually experienced the same thing as a teenager. I actually grew up in the country, so I was schooled through correspondence up until high school, and when I went to go to high school I was actually in a boarding school where I was for 6 years, and a huge shock to the system because I thought I was going to have some wonderful friends, and then I worked out that no, there was some bitchiness going on, and I was quite shocked. So that put up a heap of protection for me. I didn't trust groups of women. I didn't trust women really at any depth at all because I expected to be stabbed in the back. And because I expected it, I saw it everywhere. And so that was something that, yeah, so, you know, Liz, you get this. This is the sort of thing that our history will bring up. So that projection of mine in expectation that I was going to get basically not included into groups, the ridicule, and I just didn't fit in the way that it was expected. So and I always found it much easier to hang with blokes. And you know, the difference between men and women is that women's thoughts runs through the emotional center of their brain. So every thought has an emotion and every emotion has a thought. So we add stories to emotions, and we add emotions to stories because we're feeling based. And men's brains work completely opposite, and they're very logical and linear. They can do the other way, but the majority will follow the linear line of thoughts. And so they're much easier and simpler to communicate with or be around because they don't add stories. And if they do, well, you know, they've got stuff going on. But generally speaking, the majority of the time, it's much easier to hang around with the guys. And if, as you said, Liz, you want to help people and you find that it's not accepted in a way that is your intention, then that will trigger that pattern and you feel, as you said, not appreciated, not reciprocated in what your intention is. Now that comes down to how we take responsibility for our triggers. So we know our history, we know that it comes from the past, and we know we're actually in our trigger. That straight away puts you in a point of power where you can do something about that. So if you're triggered by the history, then the process is the emotional mastery process, which is going into what the trigger is, seeing what the lesson and the wisdom of it is, and integrating that so that that issue is no longer an issue. So you can actually offer your services to people without any expectation of what is offered back. Now, that in itself is a journey of clearing away the pain that is within, the fear of rejection, the anger that comes underneath. All of those feelings have to come to the surface to be not just released but integrated, because we don't want to release anything, get rid of it. We want it to be integrated in a way that will actually be useful. And if there's anger and everything underneath, as you know, Liz, we talked about this earlier today, the anger is a useful thing for our creativity, for our actions, for the development of our passion and our purpose. So we've got Renee's got a question also. So working in a male-based industry, I often receive sexist comments and are often passed up for jobs that I am more experienced at doing for a man who has no idea when on site. Yeah, okay. And isn't that the the journey of women in this modern age of how to stand up and be seen for our value and what we can offer, and how to show men in their way what our value is. So one of the things, Renee, around this sort of thing is I think I try to educate women on how to communicate with men in a way that men understand, rather than our natural form of communication as a woman. And that way we make sure our story, our whatever it is that we want to put across, is understood clearly and valued for what it is. So the communication style to get that story across to men is quite different to how we would tell it to a woman. Very factual, dot point, and not too much fluff going on, obviously. Sexist comments, yeah, look, it's the way of the world. I haven't really found an answer to stop it. I think the only answer for us as women is to not be triggered by it. And on a male-dominated work site, if that's where you're at, then they're going to do it no matter what you do. And how we feel about it is generally about the only thing we can control. So the feeling, what is the story you put around what those comments mean, is where we have to go to look at how to alleviate that energy and make it something that you can just brush off as unimportant. Because really it's actually really about them. And if we try to get all men to stop being how they've learnt to be, it's an uphill battle and it's tiring. It's far easier to change how we feel and think inside of ourselves than it is to change anything external. Once you change the internal, then you've got more options. Yeah, the change in communication styles, it is really interesting, and that in itself is it'll be coming up more actually in the 4-week course. In the first one, it's very much about the balance within and how men and women work and things like that. So we will touch on that in that 4-week course. And hopefully, yeah, you'll get some more out of that. Now, what else did we say, Renee? So from your mother, every conversation ends in tears or anger. She brings up things that I did in the depths of my mental illness from my teenagers years in most conversations, and constantly seems to speak to me as if I hurt her and never do anything kind for her. Constantly stuck in the past and cannot see the work I've put in over the last 10 years and how much I've grown as a person. Wow, yeah, Renee, isn't that just so frustrating when the people who we love the most and love us the most can't see past the old issues. And I think the communication style that we have to have as we grow and move forward is really very much about what is it that we want to communicate and how is that person capable of receiving it. So a lot of times, and someone said to me today, they were trying to have a chat with somebody who, from a very logical point of view, and the person who was receiving the information was very much in their emotional response or reaction to what was being said. So I suggested that the best way for communication in that sense is to ask the person, how do you feel when I say that? What are you feeling right now? What's coming up for you that I want to understand more about how you're feeling around this and what's going on for you. So that brings them into then, rather than it brings them back into their feelings and explaining their feelings, because that's where they're stuck. And if they're stuck in their feelings and you're trying to talk to somebody to get a point across, then they're not going to get it. Like, they can't get it in their head. The logic is never going to be received when someone's stuck in their gut, in their emotions, and their emotions are history bound with their thoughts. So it's like smashing against each other and nothing is resolved, and it's frustrating for both. It's hurtful, and it just brings up old emotion. What I would suggest, Renee, is that the more that you clear your emotional baggage and are able to speak from a clear place and see what your mother is saying in her communication. So yes, she's saying that she was hurt, but where is the communication? Was she actually hurt because she was in pain around that she couldn't help you at that time? Or is she hurt because she felt like she was unable to participate in life, which is her responsibility, but no, still hurt was involved? That projection of whatever that hurt is onto how you were, which you obviously had no choice in that time, is her responsibility. That may never change. So we have to be able to keep clearing ourselves and not needing a certain response from the people around us. Because as soon as you need a certain response to feel okay with them, then you're handing your power straight over to them, and they will, if unconscious, just project at you constantly. But if we're in our power and we don't get triggered by it, they've got no energy to push against. So it's like anger meeting anger, it just causes an explosion. Yeah, it looks like something that will never change. It's a situation where I need to protect myself from the projection. Okay, so protection is a strategy for the immediate. You will not need protection once you're stable in your own sense of self and clarity of your emotional way of being. And as I was talking about, if the energies are hitting against each other, then it builds into more and more and more and more of an explosion, which is all reactionary. So to not react is the key. How to not react is the journey. So for protection, if you're with somebody who is projecting at you and you don't feel like you can actually cope with it, you feel its impact, then I would suggest that you use this technique. Excuse me one moment. Okay, that's all good. Just someone else who was letting me know that something's come up. Okay, so one technique to protect your energy is using an octahedron. And to do that, let me just, okay. The way to do that is to, and let's do that together now so that you can actually have that as a tool in your back pocket. So what you do is, in your imagination, you imagine a octahedron in your center, so in your stomach, upper stomach area. Now, octahedron is 2 pyramids base to base, so it's 8-sided. And what you do is you close your eyes and you take a nice deep breath in, and as you breathe in, you're breathing in with the intention of filling this octahedron with energy. So as you breathe in, the energy is coming down through the top of your head into this octahedron in your stomach. So just do this now. And as you breathe out, the energy is going down through your body and your feet into the earth. And each breath that you breathe in through the nose brings the energy in through the top of your head and in through the earth to build in this octahedron in your stomach. So you just breathe nice and deeply and in a relaxed way that is just going to just slow everything down. And as you breathe, you just imagine, if you can't feel it, it doesn't matter, you just imagine all this energy pouring in from the base and pouring in from the top of your head into this octahedron until the octahedron is full and shiny and bright. And now your intention as you breathe is to actually breathe it bigger. So I want you to breathe this octahedron so it starts to grow within you until you can actually imagine and or feel that it's actually popping out through your skin. And as you breathe this octahedron out, it becomes big enough so that the top point is above your head and the bottom point is below your feet. And as you breathe this, you ask that all the energy that is within it that is not yours leaves. So what this does is actually just pushes out anybody's energy or any energy that does not belong to you, pushes it out through the octahedron. Now this octahedron is actually a sacred geometry shape that is in your aura at all times. This octahedron, when you do this, does not allow any energy in. So now taking a breath and coming back to present in this webinar. Now just some feedback. So anyone in the chat box want to give some feedback on that, whether that was easy to do, whether it was hard to do, if it was hard to do, why was it hard, what was difficult, and we can go through it a bit more so that you've got it really clear. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to go on and let you know that that shape is a shape that you can use at any time, like you have it around you walking into a room so that you don't get impacted. Okay, so Renee, what I would suggest, I'm going to send this recording to you all in an email. It'll probably be in tomorrow's email. So you'll have this recording to go over and you can practice this technique over and over again. And just remember with your breathing, you breathe in through your nose using belly breaths. So that's not your top, if you're breathing and your shoulders and upper left chest are lifting up, your this causes stress and it activates a stress hormone. If you breathe from your stomach, yeah, no worries, Vicky. I know what it's like when you've still got kids that are up and about, not ready for bed yet. It's in the shape used in the, yes, that's right, Liz, it's the shape used in the Tesla light chamber. So it's well known as a very, very powerful shape. Now, as I was saying, always use belly breaths. This is really important in regards to slowing everything down, because the belly breath is the way that babies breathe, and you'll notice a baby when it's sleeping and its belly will move but the chest won't move at all. So that way you can really calm everything down whilst expanding this octahedron around you. And once you've practiced it a few times, you can actually do it in a split second like that. It might just take it one breath and you've got it around you and you're really solid. Now, if you want someone to let someone into that, all you have to do is have that intention. And it could be a conscious thought of, I let Liana into this octahedron so that she and I can communicate on an energetic level fully. Which obviously, if you've got the octahedron around you, I can't feel you right now, and a lot of what I channel comes through because I can feel you. So if you can let me in, that would be great. Okay, cool. Any questions at all about that? Okay, so we'll move forward. One of the things about projection and communication on a really authentic level is how much are we being authentic in who we are? How much are we really showing of our true selves in our vulnerability? If we've got our history, our masks, our protection up, true communication cannot happen. It's basically two masks communicating with each other, whereas the person behind the mask is not getting to actually connect with another person at all deeply. And what that actually does is we don't actually know who we truly are if we have our masks. So that's a journey of dropping away the mask and finding out who you really are on a very deep level so that you can be authentic in who you present yourself to be in different situations. And let's face it, some situations where you're in your inner circle and you can be completely open and vulnerable, where it's you haven't got narcissists around that are going to take advantage of you or anything like that, then that's a place to be fully vulnerable. Other times where you're in a more of a work environment where you've got no choice about the people around you, well then you're not going to be quite so open. But if you know who you are, it doesn't matter. You can be who you want to be, knowing that your authentic self is inside and you're okay with that. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that clear? Yes, great. So acknowledging these traits and these masks are absolutely the first step to changing them. And we all have them for a reason. Like, we've all had history that we haven't always been nurtured or supported or treated in a way that feels safe or empowering. And if we've had these really traumatic experiences, always know that these experiences have happened to give you some really deep wisdom about yourself, about who you are and what you're here to do, what it is you have to offer to the world. The bigger the event and the impact it's had on you, the deeper the wisdom that's available to you. And ultimately, the actual answer to why it's happened is with underneath that part of you that's been really scared and made to feel wrong or inadequate or just not acceptable, underneath that is the true self. The journey of actually dropping those fears away is one of, let's call it, gentle exploration. The way that I work with people to do that is it's quite simple yet powerful and quite safe. And the reason for that is I'm okay with the shadow emotions and the shadow thoughts and projections of people. I actually like them because I know what they're there for, and I know that there's the gold that's in them, and I can actually get to that gold and see it and feel it and help that person to do the same thing, which is what I'm all about. So anytime you have awareness around something that is holding you in a grip, be grateful for that awareness, because that's the first step to loosening that grip. And if you haven't as yet got the tools to do it yourself, then you ask for help. Okay, so one of the things that empaths and deep feelers tend to do or not do that sabotages them is they don't say no often enough, or they don't say yes often enough. And what I mean by that is saying no to helping somebody or supporting somebody that is not actually supporting yourself. It's like when somebody says, oh, can you just do this for me? You know, you always help me out, and you know, I'm haven't been able to get my shit together and I just need your help. And you go, oh yeah, sure, yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, no worries. And I'll help you so that next time you'll be able to do it, you know, yourself, and I'll help you do that. And next time they go, oh, I haven't done that, and you know, just help me again. Yeah, okay, no worries. No. Learn to say no when you're banging your head up against a continual repetitive pattern that someone is projecting at you. And you're saying no not just for yourself, but for them. Because until you say no, and they have to learn to take responsibility for themselves, you are keeping them trapped in their pattern. Not helping them gives the opportunity to them for them to learn. If you keep helping them, they don't have to have a motivator for their own growth. So no is very much about taking care of yourself and helping others to be more self-reliant and self-resilient and self-aware. Saying yes more often is quite often, yeah, that's a good one, isn't it, Vicky? We all need to hear it repetitively, because in our female nature and how we've been taught to as we grow up, we can quite easily be way too much in the giving. Now, saying yes more often is about saying yes to support, saying yes to supporting yourself. So it's how to put yourself in a position of nurturing, validating yourself, looking after yourself, putting you first. And mothers have a really hard time doing this, especially with little children, because they have such high needs. Now, there's ways of doing it that is going to fulfill their needs as well as your own. So saying yes to you is always going to be something that you've got to practice and learn to do more consciously. And we've all got friends that are going to say like, oh look, I'll look after the kids. You go and go to the movies. You haven't had any time out at all for a while, so let me help your kids with your kids. And there's a part of you going, oh no, it's okay. I wouldn't want you to do that. That's just too much. Say yes. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, and get out that door as fast as possible. Now, if you're doing it every day, then maybe you need to balance it out. But I'm pretty sure a lot of you are not doing it every day. So saying yes to yourself is absolutely vital. Does that make sense? Who's good at saying yes to yourself? Something I've learned, and it's an ongoing journey, but I'm getting better at it. Yeah, Renee, you're learning too. Yeah, slowly, Liz. Yeah, yep. And slowly's good. Anything's good. Everyone in their own pace and own time. It's the awareness that actually counts. The other thing I would like to bring up about this topic of projection is, if you keep doing the same style of communication and thinking in the same way while wanting a different response from someone, it's a bit like, I can't remember what the saying is, but the saying where if you keep doing the same thing but you want a different outcome, is the recipe for craziness or stupidity or something like that. I can't actually remember it, but basically, if you want something different, do it differently. So changing your communication style, changing the way that you think, how you feel, and what you're actually doing leads to completely different outcomes. So Vicky said, yes, but too good sometimes doesn't help with procrastination and doing the right thing. The things that move you forward, the ones that are more scary. Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly right. The things that really make a difference are the scariest things. So the part of you that doesn't want to change is the part, so it's easy on myself to yeah, it's always one way or the other, Vicky. Like, we can be way too easy on ourselves and go, all right, yeah, I'm just going to nurture myself today, rather than do those actions I need to do to get my business happening. Because I deserve it, because the kids have just been horrible, and now that they're away at school or childcare or wherever it might be, I'm going to nurture myself. And you get stuck in nurturing and nodding furiously. I love that. So you need to say no to yourself more often. No, what is it that I want to commit to, and how am I going to do that right now? What is the first thing I'm going to do, and what is the most uncomfortable thing that I'm going to do, because that's where the gold is. So it's different for everybody, and that's one of the things with personal growth. There's the two extremes. There's the one that says too many, not enough no's, and the one that says too many yeses, and we may be one or the other at different times in our life about different situations. So the self-awareness and being really honest with yourself about what you're doing and whether it's working or not is absolutely required. That self-responsibility, if you're not prepared to be self-responsible, then you're never going to get the change that you want. And as much as that can sometimes seem really harsh, the harshness only comes from if you judge that part of you that you're being responsible for. If you judge it as wrong, rather than seeing it as a lesson of learning, a lesson of change, and something that is going to help you to expand as a human being. Now, I've gone on quite a bit, and if you've got any questions, now would be a great time to throw them at me after everything that I've spoken. If there's anything that you want a little bit more detail on in regards to your own personal situation, then chuck that in the chat box or question box, whichever is fine. So if we don't have any more questions, one of the things that all of this brings up for anyone that's feeling based is emotion. And traditionally we class emotion as inconvenient. Renee, thank you. Renee's looking forward to the 4-week program and learning more about the communication styles. Fantastic. Thank you, Renee. Yeah, I've got so much stuff that I want to share with people. I don't know how I'm going to fit it all in, but we'll do my best. Always know that any time that you want to make change as an empath, as a feeling-based person, it's always going to bring up emotion. And those emotions set you free. So if you're trying to push them down and control them, always find that space for yourself where you can be really authentic. And as time goes on, if you're working with me more or you're on these community webinars, you'll be able to learn more about how to really be authentic and let the emotional content flow as best in a way that will be empowering rather than victim-based. Now, emotions cannot all be both empowering or victim, and the victim-based emotions are when we get stuck in them and we make stories about them and we awfulize them and all of those things that we've all done at some stage or other, and probably still do in certain situations until we become self-aware about it, and then we can do something with it. Renee, I seem to be able to sit with sadness and anxiety, but anger is a challenge to sit with. Wow. Well, traditionally as women, we were given permission to be sad or scared. We were never given permission to be angry. An angry woman or angry girl, child, was frowned upon in our society, still is to a certain degree. So we were never given permission for anger. Now, anger is one of the best things because it's so passionate. It's action-based. So if we want change, we need to be able to tap into that anger energy without it triggering us so that we can actually grab it and motivate us to take immediate action in a way that is helpful in situations where we may be uncomfortable or stepping out of our comfort zone. Anger is the power and the passion behind change. Even if the anger is directed at self. If the anger is directed at self, Vicky, then it is judgmental. So if that's the habit that you're in, admit that you're in that habit and you're going, I am angry and I'm judging myself, and that's not helpful. So how about I use it? All right, so that anger is sitting inside of me in my gut. How can I use it? I'm going to write something that is going to be useful for me. I'm going to write that content and I'm going to put it right out there, and I'm going to do it really fast because anger is fast and moving. So if it's directed at yourself, practice turning it around and using it. Now, if you're directing it at yourself and you're judging that you've done something wrong, then that's coming from your past. Who else would have said that to you? Who else has done that in a way that you've either mirrored or been judged by? And then you go, all right, so that's what I've learned from them. Now I'm going to do it my way. And you just, again, put it out there, use it to do something. There is a deeper wisdom underneath it, and more of that will come out if you're working one-on-one, but that's a great way to use it in this immediate short process that we're going through today. Cool. All right. Any questions or anything before we finish up? I've had fun. I hope you have. And I hope it's made sense, because I've just sort of let it flow as best I can. So wonderful. Thank you, Renee. So know how to work with your emotional software is the way that you become your leader. So the leader of you. And as you know, with emotional intelligence and leadership go hand in hand, and it's been well acknowledged nowadays that that's what we need to be really good leaders, but we need to be empowered to do that. So that's where support is always required. So the way I support you is through these free webinars, and these will be on every month, the first Tuesday of each month, and they'll be on my Facebook page, so I'll try and invite you all to them, but keep an eye out for them if you can. The other thing is I've got the 4-week program coming up on Monday, which is the introduction to emotional mastery. Now I think everybody on here knows about those, so if you want to sign up for that, I think you've all been invited to it. You just need to go in and click on tickets, goes to the landing page and to the payment box, and then you get an email from me with the links, etc., to that, the first workshop. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free at any time to message me. Go on to the Facebook page or my group and just ask questions. If you don't ask, how are you going to get your answers? So I want to thank you all for being on tonight, and I really hope you've got some great stuff out of what we've done. I'll send these recordings out to you tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much, and it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all whenever that may be. Thank you. Thanks. Bye, Vicky. Thank you, Renee. Thanks, Liz.